everyone. My name is Kajal, and joining us today is Maddie. I hope the video and audio is going through clearly. So please help us out and put it in the chat if you can see and hear us very clearly. But we're really excited to have all of you here. And I am so excited to bring Maddie here with us today. She's someone who has done her PhD in the US in mechanical engineering and is pursuing robotics. The reason I say this is because I know a lot of people are afraid coming from mechanical engineering and thinking, can I do robotics? Is it only for computer science? But it doesn't matter what background you come from, you can still be part of robotics. And also, Maddie has a robotics startup coming up in the education sector. And I want her to tell us more about it. So take it up, Maddie. Tell us more about you and the business that you're starting.
Hi, Kajal. Thank you so much for having me today.
It's
Yes,
a pleasure.
thank you. I did my PhD in the US, and I have a electrical engineering and mechanical engineering background. Actually, I did my BS in electrical engineering, then master's in mechatronics, and
Nice.
PhD in engineering. Yeah, I started a startup company, Mecharism, which is to design a comprehensive platform for roboticists. Like you can learn robotics there, you can read about news in this platform, and you can find jobs, everything you can that is related to robotics that can be done in this platform. We are also working on educational robotics, and we want to design some platforms that help especially university students to understand robotics better. For instance, if you want to learn about automation, a small factory with all the components can help you to understand it better instead of just seeing the lectures and listening to lengthy lectures. Yeah, that's what we are doing in this startup.
Yeah, and it's pretty awesome. And they've already started doing some videos on YouTube. The link is in the description. Do check it out. Do subscribe even to my channel. And let's create this amazing community for all of you to make it easier to study robotics. So,
Yeah.
with that, let's get started. We have a lot of pre submitted questions. We'll go through them, and Maddie will give her experience and also a lot of advice. So, you all can learn from everything that we've done, including our mistakes, so you don't have to repeat them.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So our first question is where to start if you know programming? Should you take courses online or should you attend school? What do you think?
Oh, well, that's great that they know programming, but well, this question can be answered in different aspects. It depends on your goal for the future. If you want to go to in the academia, why you want to attend the school and do your PhD, you should weigh these things. And in terms of hire, most jobs hire you because of your skills and your passion to do that job and not the degree that you have. So if it's just for degree, you don't have to attend the school. You can um, catch those skills out of school too. You should first, I should first talk to them and see what his or her goal is from going to school. If it's just for degree, I can tell you that with a bachelor's degree, you can get the same job that you can get with a master's degree because they're looking for your skills and your passion, not your degree. Uh, you should ask yourself why you want to go to school first. But programming is a plus, definitely.
Yeah, very well said indeed. And also, one thing I think when it comes to doing courses online and attending school is self-discipline. Because if you're doing courses online on your own, if they don't have any deadlines, it can be sometimes challenging to keep yourself motivated. So do
Yeah.
consider that when you're thinking it through.
Okay. Yeah, you need self-discipline, of course.
All right. Our next question is what type of courses we should learn for robotics?
Well, that's a great question. So you should learn about basics like coordinate frames, transformations, kinematics, dynamics, controls. And this can be done with pretty much an introduction to robotics course or modern robotics course that your university offers, or advanced robotics in some universities, they call it. I myself teach fundamentals of robotics in my channel, and I use two textbooks for this that I highly recommend. The first textbook is Modern Robotics by Kevin Lynch, which is a great textbook for undergraduate students who want to learn the basics of robotics. And it's basically very not mathematically heavy book, so you can learn the basics without going into a lot of math. So that's good for undergraduate students and graduate students as well. And I also like the second textbook, which is called The Mathematical Introduction to Robotics Manipulation by Morelli and Sastry. This is a more advanced book, and I highly recommend it for graduate students because it's a little mathematically heavy. So it's very good for research side of things. So I used it for my PhD, and it really helpful. I use both textbooks. I combine them sometimes. To be a good robotics engineer, you should know at least one programming language. And C++ is so common, but Python is getting attention nowadays, and especially people who do machine learning and DL stuff, they prefer to use Python. So just learn one programming language. And MATLAB is important in robotics too for fast prototyping. For example, you have an idea and you want to see what the output is, right? So MATLAB is good for fast prototyping. You can just test your output in there.
And get these nice plots. That is a little bit more tricky in C++.
Yeah. Exactly, yes. So before implementing in C++, it's good to test it in MATLAB, of course. I recommend a working knowledge of ROS, and along with a simulator like Gazebo. Nowadays, Unity is very common. We are also working on this ROS tutorials that are coming soon. So a working knowledge of ROS is good, and also a robotic simulator. Just know how it works and do a small project in there so that you can get an understanding of how it works. Like linear algebra, basics of optimization are also good to take because sometimes you should have a good, when you are working with robotics, lots of matrices, lots of maths that you should be familiar with. So a good grasp of statistics, probability, optimization, and linear algebra is highly recommended. If your university offers a course like mechatronics, definitely take it because a robot is a mechatronic system, right? So with a course like mechatronics, you would grasp different things like working knowledge of sensors, actuators, modern controls, and these are really helpful for your robotics career. So if there's a mechatronic course, definitely. In the future, it depends on your direction. If you want to be a software robotics engineer, and you want to be, for example, involved in courses that talks about localization and how to robot's position, or you should. There are also SLAM engineers, simultaneous localization and mapping engineers in industry, and you can do some projects with ROS C++ mapping algorithms. Or you can do navigation, which you can combine SLAM and navigation algorithms, for example, to develop an autonomous robot. And whatever role you want to have in the future, I highly recommend to use at least one machine learning, deep learning, or AI algorithm in your project. I don't say that you develop an algorithm for it, definitely not, but use one of the algorithms in your project because it's a plus when you're applying for a job. And nowadays it's really, really important. And I can say that a robotics engineer is a jack of all trades, master of none, right? So don't expect to be an expert in all fields. Just use your
Hey, Maddie,
That's
you're
all I
kind of
have to say
cutting
about that.
off. I'm so sorry, but you're kind of cutting off. I turned off my video. Can you also turn it off for a few minutes and maybe we can turn it on after some time just to see if it's like a bandwidth problem?
Sure. Is it okay now?
Yeah, much better. Yeah, I get a lot of comments with people are like, there's a little bit of breakup. So let's turn off the video and try this. Maybe I can overlap it with a photo later. But yeah, the audio seems good for now. All right.
Okay.
And yeah, that was such a good answer. Thank you so much. Because as you said, there's a lot to learn and don't get too bogged down with like, oh, there are so many courses to do. It's 80-20, right? If you know 80% of the topics, you're still in a really good position.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. So the next question is I'm looking at an opportunity in robotics. Currently, this person's doing BTEC in mechatronics and they want to do a master's in robotics and get in the career. So, what is the procedure to do it? So, how does one go from BTEC to master's? And because we're talking about US specifically, let's hear your experience on that.
Okay, sure. Mechatronics is so related to robotics. So as I said, robotics is mechatronics system, right? So this person has a good chance of getting into a robotics program. The procedure is pretty straightforward. They should shortlist the universities that they want to attend, and they should work on the grades and also take GRE and TOEFL. GRE score is not very like important. A good GRE doesn't get you a good admission, but especially for a robotics program, if you get a bad score in the math part, it's really ugly in your resume. So it's very important to get a perfect score in the math section, but I don't think that vocabulary section that important in terms of getting a robotics admission, but definitely work in your math score and perfect it. TOEFL is important. I know that most universities offer a score of 80, but I highly recommend to get a score of 100 or above because a lot of universities ask for that when you're becoming a TA, teaching assistant in that university. So it's important there. Then you should fill out the application form, prepare your academic CV, write your statement of purpose, get your letters of recommendation, and finally submit the forms.
Yeah, very well said. And as you said, we tend to think that scores are really important. And I know coming from a country like India where scores were really important, the same is not true in the US. Your statement of purpose holds more value than your scores. But yeah, kind of like try and aim to at least get certain minimum like 100 in TOEFL. But you don't have to stress too much about like, oh, I didn't get like a 120 in TOEFL or like a 105. As long as you're above 100, you're good to go.
Yes. I think it's now stable. We can start our cams, right?
Yeah. How about you turn on your camera first and I can turn it on after a few minutes?
Hi, everyone. I had people writing comments here and say hi.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, Hasina's here too.
Yeah. Also check him out. I'm so glad we are able to create this community of all the YouTubers or content creators in the robotics space.
Yeah.
Okay. So our next question is what is the profile expectations of top robotics master courses? So I'm hoping this person means when they're submitting their application for masters, what does one expect their profile should look like?
Oh, you mean when you apply for a master's?
Yes.
What the university is looking for, what the committee for?
Yes, what they're looking for, what is it that would be important?
Okay, yeah. So each university uh, has a PhD admission office that consists of professors who read those PhD, not PhD, graduate admissions office, right? That consists of all these professors in that area that read admissions. In most universities, the committee has the final say on which students can enter the program. And in some universities, the the professor that wants you has the final say. But from shoe of those professors, when they're reading your application, they're looking for candidates who are passionate about research and who are actually good at research. Even if you're an undergrad, research experience, it's highly recommended. Work with a research experience because that's what they are looking for the most, and that's the most important thing that can stand out on your resume. Research experience and the evidence, like having papers and conferences or robotics journals, right? And they also look at your grades, but good grades shouldn't come at the expense of not having a research experience, right? Uh, there would be other grades like language grades that they look at, but volunteering is not important as long as it's of not of academic nature, right? Write your volunteering if it's related to academia, like if you volunteered to work at a professor's lab and do research, or if you volunteered to be a TA or teaching assistant. Um, Other volunteering work doesn't really good because I don't say that they are not valuable. They are truly valuable, but I'm talking about from the admissions committee point of view. Um, if a candidate do too much volunteer work, then it's a red flag because the professor think, oh, this person volunteers too much unpaid time on other things other than research. So he or she is not a good fit for my lab because I want him uh, to do a considerable amount of time in research, right? So
Yeah.
I think research is the most important thing in the resume.
Yeah, exactly. Research, and also a lot of you who may not have access to research lab, see if you can do something on your own, or maybe you can participate in a competition, because even in competition you'll be working a lot. They essentially want to see that are you someone who can do things on your own, are you someone who's doing outside of the coursework and kind of doing more work within your area of interest, and not just sticking to, okay, I got this coursework and that's all I did.
Yeah, yeah. Even undergraduate students sometimes think that research is not important, but it's very important. Get research experience as much as you can. Even some, I think some companies offer internships that have research positions too.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next question. Now we're shifting gears and looking more towards work experience and stuff like that. So the
Mhm.
question is, are robotic opportunities abundant? Do we require prior work experience related to robotics? And another related question was job opportunities after robotics in USA.
Okay, so um, this person is our robotics opportunity. Actually, yes. Um, Especially after the pandemic, robotics opportunities uh, are really robotics engineers is needed, especially a robotic engineer, because everybody wants to do automation. So yes, the opportunities are a lot, but prior work related to robotics, when if you're a student, for example, a master's or PhD student, try to get an internship during summer. That really stand out in resume in terms of getting a job. And there are a lot of job opportunities after doing your PhD or master's in the US. Whether you want to go to, if you are a PhD, you have several directions, right? Some PhDs go into academia and do professorship. Some PhDs go into industry and do research jobs. Nowadays, a lot of companies like Facebook, I know that they are uh, only getting PhDs for their some of their positions. So and so research in industry, and also some PhDs also turn their idea into startups. So that's another direction that you can take after graduating.
Yeah, exactly. There are tons of opportunities, and I think there are a lot more startups in robotics and AI now than there were a couple of years ago because
Exactly.
there's more access to funding as well.
Hmm. Totally correct.
Okay, all right. So the related question was, is it worth spending so much money for masters in robotics? And there will be enough, will there be enough ROI to cover up the education loan, if any? Given masters in robotics in the US generally tends to be higher, I guess the person's trying to ask is if they will get a good enough salary that they can pay off the loan.
Okay, so if you get into a PhD program, you're fully funded in the US. You don't have to pay anything, tuition, and you will get a stipend. But for masters, there are several ways to actually pay as you go, and you don't accrue debt. You can get research assistantship in a lab. Master's student can work in a lab for the professor in exchange for uh, money from the professor. They can, a lot of universities offer their teaching assistantships to master's students so they can get a TA job. And also, there are a lot of fellowships and scholarships available. I know that for US people, NSF, NDSEC, and Hertz are three of the most prominent fellowships, but there are also scholarships for international students as well. So you don't need to accrue a lot of debt because you can work during your master's. And another thing that I know some people do, but I don't say you do it, you can get into a PhD program first and you can be fully funded. But then after 2 years, if you see that you can't continue or PhD is not something that you want to do, then you can apply for masters, right? And get your masters and not continue PhD. So US universities give you this option too.
Yeah, exactly. And I also want to clarify this for people who may not know. So I know in some countries it's like you do your bachelor's, then you have to do your master's before you can do PhD. But that's not the
No,
case in the US. Even with a bachelor's, you can straight up go for your PhD.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and this I think kind of goes into the next question, how to get admission in USA for PhD after MTech or even after bachelor's, I guess. Because in general, when you apply for masters, it's like, okay, you're doing the application form and you're hoping to hear back. But I feel like things may be a little different for PhD. What are your opinion?
Yeah, you don't have to do a master's to get into a PhD program. If you have bachelor's, you can directly come to a PhD program. So the admission is it's like going to the university website and shortlisting your universities and reading their requirements, then prepping to their requirements like GRE and TOEFL. So a lot of people think that GRE has a lot of effect, but I think that a very good GRE doesn't have that much effect in your admission. But a bad score definitely is horrible, right?
Yeah.
Especially for a robotics engineer, you should excel in your math section. The writing section 4 and above is good. For the vocabulary part, I think 150 and above is good. It wouldn't really look bad. But for the math section, definitely go for 170, right? Um, then you should contact professors, and when you contact them and send them emails, be sure to read his or her papers and bring that up in your email and how you can contribute to their research in their labs. Professors like passionate students, and he or she wants to know how you can contribute to his lab. So be sure to bring that up in your email. Craft a PhD application, PhD or master's application, but I'm talking about PhD because it's direct as well. That is irresistible in terms of grades, your letters of recommendation, statement of purpose, GRE scores, your past research work. There is I talked earlier in this discussion that each department has a PhD admissions office that consists of all the professors who read PhD admissions. Sometimes in some universities, when you contact the professor and he or she accepts you, then he or she has the final say. So you can get admission for that university. But in some universities, there is committee of these professors who read PhD admissions, and they have the final say on the application. From the shoes of these professors, they're looking for candidates. I mentioned earlier today, who are passionate about research and who are really good at research too, in terms of publications, conferences, because this is logical, right? If you are a PhD student, you're a potential student. If I'm a professor and somebody is applying to my lab, if he or she gets good results, then I can use those results to write grants, right? And good grants means good money. So it's like symbiotic relationship between a PhD student and his or her professor. Um, if I'm good, the professor gets money, my PhD is funded, and I'm financially stable, right? So I mentioned this earlier again. Even if you're an undergraduate student, join a professor's lab, and there are different ways to get research experience. Like if you do a course with a professor and you excel in that course, usually professors reach out to you and they ask you to work in their lab. Or you can go and talk to them and say that I'm interested in working in your lab, and you know what the research is about. Don't go and say I want to work here. Just know that what the research is about, and say that how you can contribute to that research. This is one way, and the other way is getting some internships from companies with research work, and also these are some experiences that you get good research experience. And these professors, these committee is looking for students who are actually passionate about the research that is done in that department, right? So you should show interest in their, maybe you're a very good student, but your area of research is not in demand in that department. So this is also important, that you show interest in the work that they are doing, and say how you can contribute to that. Don't add a lot of volunteer work to your CV. That doesn't really look good. Add only volunteer work that is related to academia, like teaching assistantship or doing some research work related
Yeah.
to academia, right?
Very well said. Indeed, it's your PhD is going to be more about the research work you do than all the coursework. So make sure you're in alignment with the person that you want to work for. What is the research that they are doing and how you can contribute towards them? Keep both of these things in mind, and it's also good for you, right? You don't want to do something for 5 to 6 years or more if you're not interested and enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of answered the next question as well, as to how to approach a professor and get involved. But are there any additional tips that you want to give for someone who's, let's say, trying to do this, go on websites and see what the professor is into? Any advice or tips on how to do this best?
This is best if you take a course with that professor. Usually students take course with a professor of interest, and they excel in that course, and then they approach the professor, and obviously the professor is so interested in you joining their lab. I think most professors interested in top students in the class to come and volunteer for their lab. So that's the best, I think, way of approaching a professor. So get a course with that professor, excel, and then ask for that professor to join their lab.
Yeah, very well said. And that's also another thing, right? Like when you're taking courses with professors, make sure you are participating, make sure you're showing that you're really interested in this work. And anyone who's teaching, if you're a good student, you will catch their eye.
Exactly, yes.
All right, this kind of concludes our session. And I once again want to thank you so much, Maddie, for coming in and sharing all of your experience.
I see
And
a question here. Someone says how a deep learning researcher can enter this domain. Well, actually, these professionals are in demand nowadays. Um, so a lot of companies are looking for deep learning, machine learning, and AI professionals nowadays because they are now in interest. So a deep learning researcher can definitely go into a robotics project because they
Mhm.
want to use these algorithms on robots and make them uh, more intelligent, right? So definitely a very good area.
Yeah, I would agree. AI, deep learning, machine learning, these are some of the fields that are coming up. Are there any other questions you want to take? I know we're kind of short on time, but if there's another question you want to pick.
Um, Somebody said which courses you would recommend. We answered that at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Okay, somebody said having done a bachelor's in mechatronics, what would be key subject areas to focus on to be a software roboticist? I talked about the navigation, SLAM at the beginning of the talk that they can do for software roboticists. Okay, do you see any other question? I just saw them.
I see one, but I think it's kind of related. So, yeah, I think we're good for now. And yeah, if you all have more questions, definitely drop it in the comment section below, or even go and drop a comment in Maddie's channel. And we will do our best to either create a short video or, just create a big video and upload it
Here's
on our
another
channel.
question, which is, I think, good to answer. Every time I apply for a position, they reject saying they are looking for someone with more experience. What can I do? Uh, Actually, when you're applying for a job, try to change your resume according to what they want. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, if they're looking for someone nowadays, when you read job descriptions, it's it looks like they want someone out of this world. Nobody can be an expert in all those areas. But my suggestion is to look for what they are working and change your resume accordingly or tweak that according to their job description or what they are working. Add the skills that are more relevant to that.
Yeah, and also don't worry so much. So the one thing that I've also noticed when I was interviewing, there are times when the person who's put in the job listing doesn't necessarily know what they're looking for. So when you're at the interview, make sure you also ask them questions as to what they're looking for and then answer them. So like one thing you should always do at the end of the interview, for example, is ask, so what are some of the challenges that you're facing in your company right now? What are the things that you're looking for someone who will fit this role well? And because that might have not be put in into the listing, and they can tell the current problems that they have and then answer back to them after they say what the problems are, how you will solve them. So then they're not focused on the amount of experience you have, but then they're focused on, okay, this person's going to solve the problem I have right now in front of me.
Exactly.
So that is something you can, hype up and show your enthusiasm at.
Exactly. Yeah. They should see an up and comer, multi level thinker and a good colleague that they can work with. So somebody
Okay.
said, what's the competition like and what's a realistic estimate and how many apply and get approved? So I think that if you're passionate about research and actually good at it by showcasing evidence like papers, patents, or any other evidence, and you have acceptable grades, it's highly probable that you get admission. I don't have real data on the estimate of how many apply and get approved. It depends on the school. Some schools like have only 10% admission. Some schools have 80%. So it depends on the school, I guess.
Yeah, it depends on school, it depends on funding. I
Mhm.
think one thing I would say is I actually had an opportunity to speak with someone who sat on the admission committee
Yeah.
for looking at master's applications. And the one thing they said in terms of competition is a lot of people who come from same universities or same country tend to have a majority of the same resume or a majority of the same statement of purpose. So when it comes to competition, I think the best thing you can do for yourself is make sure you have something different. This also goes for applying for companies and applying for positions, people coming from the same university, everyone tends to write about the same projects that they did. See how you can differentiate yourself, and then you will stand out of the competition. Because if it's everything is the same, then it's like a random pick, right? If I have to like pick one person out of 10 who all look the same, then it's a random pick. But if you have something that sets you apart, or let's say for your SOP, right? Let's say everyone else has done the same coursework, but you've participated in a robotics competition, you're instantly going to stand out.
Correct, yes.
Okay, do we have time for one more question?
Oh, sure.
All right, the next question is, when you get the job, how much of the stack is actually regularly used?
I didn't understand this question.
I think it could be two ways. I think one way could be of all the code that is written, how much of it gets used, or if from a computer science background, maybe they're asking of how much front end, back end, stuff like that. I don't know. If
I'm
you
not
can
that.
clarify, that would be great.
I
I'm
don't
the
know the
person
answer to
who
this
asked the
question.
question.
Yes, I think I don't know the answer to this question.
All right, just last question. I know we are short on time and we decided 30 minutes, but we've gone a little overboard. All right. I have graduated just recently. I do not want to be in a teaching profession. Still, should I go for PhD? I'm passionate about robotics, love to build stuff, to be specific.
Um, so it depends. Not all PhDs go into academia and be professors. As I said, if you look at the jobs that nowadays Google and Facebook offers, especially in the research part, they're looking for only PhDs. Masters and bachelors cannot apply to their job. They, in the requirement, they said PhD in computer science, robotics, or mechanical engineering, and those stuff. So there are a lot of jobs nowadays in industry that they only take PhDs. And with competition, a lot of companies are doing research in the areas of artificial intelligence, ML, DL, and they want to incorporate that in their companies. And they're, for all of these roles, they want PhDs. So you don't have to be a professor if you don't like teaching.
Yeah, I mean, PhD doesn't mean you have to go into academia. I feel with PhD, you still have those options, academia as well as out in the industry. And as Maddie rightly said, there's going to be a lot of positions that have now come up because people understand the importance of research in the industry as well.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. Okay, once again, thank you so much, Maddie. Please do go check out her YouTube channel. And she's also very active on LinkedIn. I've linked all of that. I've put all of the links in the description below. Once again, thank you so much for
Thank you,
everyone to come
Rachel,
out.
for having me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really nice talking to you.